In this video, we're going to talk about multiple grids at SPPS. To be clear, in a single contest, whether it has multiple grids or not, the players that own each box own that same box throughout the entire contest. But a contest with multiple grids allows that player to have different numbers assigned to that box because each grid has its own top and left axis. So how does that work? Well, in the default contest, you just have one grid. But if you want to provide your players with different numbers to choose from for every quarter, for example, scroll down in your settings to the Grids and Numbers Management. There's some good information here for you to read to understand it better. But as you look at the bottom, you'll see there's just one grid in this contest because that's the way it comes. At the top right corner here, you can click Add a Grid, and there's two options: pre-configured grids and adding one grid at a time. And as you look through the pre-configured section, you'll see some familiar options like 4 quarters. So let's try that. As we scroll down, you'll now see that there's 4 additional grids added, one for each quarter of the football game. You also notice that the original grid still exists. So you'll have to delete that one manually by clicking on the Actions button and delete this grid. Now, we're left with just the 4 grids, one for each quarter. As we go back to the main contest just to see what it looks like, you'll scroll down and there's a new section there. You'll notice that the grid is now labeled first quarter, and that corresponds with the highlighted one in the multiple grids section. By clicking on any of the other grids, like second quarter, the contest page is reloaded and the grid shown is the second quarter grid. And as you see, the players who own each box don't change as you go from grid to grid to grid. Now, suppose we made this change in error and we decide, I don't really like this, I want to go back to just having one grid. You can very easily scroll down to that same section and hit delete this grid for all of the grids that you want, leaving just one. So now we'll get rid of this one, and we have just one remaining. You probably want to rename this grid because it says first quarter or whatever it was defaulted to. So let's just change this to say my grid and hit Save Changes, and the contest is right back the way it was when you started. So, how do we post our numbers when our contest has multiple grids? You go to your settings, scroll down to that same section again, and click on Not Yet Set for whatever grid you want to assign numbers to. Scroll down and choose whether to post them randomly or manually, and return back to the contest to see that now the first quarter has numbers. And you'll notice that the other grids still have the question marks assigned to them because we only assigned the numbers to the first grid. So we'll go back into settings, second quarter grid, and post numbers there as well. So as we return back to that same grid section again, we'll click on the third quarter grid and post the numbers. Then we'll go back again and we'll go to the fourth quarter grid and we'll post our numbers. And just like that, you've now posted numbers randomly for all 4 quarters of your contest. And we see that as you click through these, there's a different set of numbers on the top and left for every single grid.